My name is Margaret Wilson. I am 62 years old, and last night my own son made me kneel on a cold kitchen floor while blood dripped from the corner of my mouth. Ha, even now, saying those words out loud feels unreal. If someone had told me 20 years ago that the little boy I carried in my arms would someday become the person I feared most, I would have laughed. I would have called them crazy. But life has a cruel way of turning our greatest blessings into our deepest wounds. Last night began with something so small, something stupid, a forgotten ingredient, a tiny mistake. The kind of mistake any normal person would forgive. But my son wasn't interested in forgiveness anymore, not when it came to me. And before I tell you what happened, I think you deserve to know who I am. Because monsters aren't born overnight, and victims don't become victims in a single day. There is always a story, always. My name is Margaret Wilson. For 41 years, I worked as an administrative assistant at one of the biggest law firms in our city. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, I wasn't extraordinary. I was simply a hardworking woman who believed in family, a woman who believed that sacrifice eventually pays off, a woman who spent her entire life putting her child first. That child was my son, Daniel. When Daniel was 8 years old, his father left us. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. One day he was there, the next day he wasn't. I still remember Daniel standing by the front window waiting for his father to come back, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, until eventually he stopped asking. And from that moment on, I made a promise. I would be both mother and father. I would give him everything, everything. Maybe that was my first mistake. Maybe love without limits becomes something dangerous. Maybe giving a child everything teaches them that the world owes them everything. I don't know. What I do know is that I spent decades working double shifts, missing holidays, skipping vacations, saving every dollar. Also, Daniel could have opportunities I never had, the best schools, the best clothes, the best tutors, the best future, and for a long time I thought it had worked. Daniel graduated college with honors. He got a prestigious corporate job. He drove expensive cars, wore expensive suits, lived in expensive apartments. Everyone said I should be proud, and I was. God help me, I was. Then 3 years ago, everything changed. Daniel arrived at my doorstep carrying 2 suitcases. His marriage had collapsed. His finances were a mess. At least that's what he told me. He looked exhausted, broken, lost. And when he looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "Mom, I don't know where else to go," I opened my door without hesitation, because that's what mothers do, right? We forgive, we help, we protect, even when we shouldn't. The first few months felt normal, wonderful even. We shared meals, watched movies, talked about old memories. I convinced myself this was a second chance. A chance to rebuild our relationship. Ha, I had no idea I was opening the door to my own prison. The changes happened slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice them. First came the criticism, little comments. Tiny stabs disguised as advice. Mom, you should dress better. Mom, you shouldn't eat so much sugar. Mom, your house looks outdated. Mom, you really don't understand how the world works anymore. At first, I laughed them off. Then I started believing them. Then came control. Daniel insisted on helping with my finances. He said older people were often victims of scams. He said he was protecting me, helping me, looking out for me. And because I trusted him, I let him. Big mistake, huge mistake. Within months, he knew every detail of my finances, every account, every bill, every savings plan, every penny. Then he met his new girlfriend, Vanessa. A beautiful woman almost 20 years younger than him. Elegant, charming, smart, at least that's what she appeared to be. The moment she entered our lives, things became worse, much worse. The atmosphere inside my house changed. Suddenly, I wasn't Margaret anymore. I wasn't Daniel's mother. I became staff, the cook, the cleaner, the maid, the servant. Mom, can you prepare dinner? Mom, can you iron my shirts? Mom, Vanessa's friends are coming over. Mom, clean the guest room. Every request became an expectation. Every expectation became a demand, and every demand became an order. Still, I stayed silent, because deep down I kept hoping my son would return. The boy I remembered, the boy who used to hug me after school. The boy who used to bring me flowers from the park. The boy who once told me I was his hero. But that boy was gone, and last night proved it. I spent the entire afternoon preparing dinner. A simple vegetable stew, fresh bread, roasted potatoes, nothing fancy, just comfort food. The kind of meal our family had shared for years. When Daniel came home, he looked irritated. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold, the way they always were after a bad day at work. I immediately felt nervous, my stomach twisted, my hands shook, because when Daniel was angry at the world, I usually paid the price. He sat down, picked up his spoon, took one bite, then froze. Silence, terrible silence. The kind that makes your heart stop. I knew something was wrong, I just didn't know how wrong. "What is this?" His voice was low, dangerously low. My hands started trembling. "What do you mean?" He slammed the spoon onto the table. What is this garbage? Ha, even now I can hear the sound, the spoon hitting the table, the sharp crack, the moment everything changed. I'm sorry, I said quickly. Did I do something wrong? He tasted another spoonful. Then stood up so fast his chair nearly fell backward. No seasoning, his voice rose. No flavor. Another step toward me. Do you even care anymore? Another step. Or are you becoming completely useless? My heart started pounding. I immediately apologized. I offered to fix it, to add spices, to make something else, anything, but he wasn't listening. People like Daniel never want solutions when they're angry. They want victims, and I was standing right there. Before I could move, he grabbed the bowl. My body froze. Every instinct told me what was about to happen. But I couldn't stop it. The bowl flew through the air. Hot stew exploded across my face. Ah, the burning pain was immediate. My skin felt like fire. The bowl shattered against the floor, pieces scattered everywhere. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. Then came the shouting. Endless shouting, worthless, pathetic, embarrassing, useless. The insults poured out faster than I could process them. And the worst part, Vanessa sat there watching, not helping. Not speaking, not stopping him, just watching, like it was normal, like it happened every day. Maybe it did, maybe everyone knew except me. Maybe everyone had accepted what I refused to see. Daniel grabbed my arm, hard. So hard I knew bruises would appear. Then he shoved me backward. I lost my balance. My shoulder slammed into the kitchen cabinet. Pain exploded through my body, and there I was, a 62-year-old woman on the floor, covered in food, bleeding. Looking up at the son I once loved more than life itself. He stared down at me, breathing heavily, his face twisted with rage. Then suddenly, just as quickly as it started, the anger vanished. It always did. That's the terrifying thing about people like Daniel. They can switch emotions like flipping a light switch. One moment they're monsters. The next moment they're calm, normal, almost kind. He looked down and sighed, as if I were the problem. As if I had forced him to do it. You make me do these things. Ha, can you believe that? You make me do these things. Then he walked upstairs, closed his bedroom door, and went to sleep just like that, leaving me alone. Bleeding, shaking, broken, I stayed on that kitchen floor for a long time. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour, I honestly don't know. Time feels strange when your heart is breaking. Eventually, I picked up the pieces, one by one. Each piece of broken ceramic felt like a piece of my life. My dignity, my motherhood, my faith, all shattered across that floor. And as I cleaned, a single thought kept repeating inside my mind, the same thought, again and again. What if my son isn't going to stop? What if next time is worse? What if next time I don't get back up? And just as that terrifying question settled into my heart, I had no idea that the next morning would bring a phone call capable of destroying everything Daniel had spent years hiding. Everything. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face. Not the face from when he was a little boy, not the face from his graduation day, not the face from family photographs. No. I saw the face from the kitchen, the face of a man who looked at his own mother and saw nothing. No love, no respect, no guilt, just anger. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while the clock slowly ticked through the darkness. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound seemed louder than the last. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps upstairs. Daniel, he was still awake, pacing, talking on the phone, laughing, actually laughing. As if he hadn't thrown boiling food at me just a few hours earlier. As if my pain meant absolutely nothing. I pressed a cold cloth against the bruise forming on my shoulder. It hurt, but not as much as my heart. You know what's strange? When someone hurts you long enough, you stop being surprised. You stop asking why. You stop expecting apologies. You simply survive. That had become my life. Survival, nothing more. When morning finally arrived, I dragged myself out of bed. The house was quiet. Daniel had already left for work. A small part of me felt relieved. The safest moments in that house were always the moments when he wasn't there. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the kitchen window. The shattered bowl from the previous night had been cleaned up. The floor looked normal again, but I wasn't normal. Something inside me felt broken, completely broken. Then my phone rang. I nearly dropped the cup. Unknown number. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Most calls these days were telemarketers, but something told me to answer. Hello, a man's voice replied. Mrs. Wilson, yes, my name is Robert Hayes. I'm calling from Carson Financial Group. I frowned. The name meant nothing to me. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. No, ma'am. His voice became serious. I'm looking specifically for Margaret Wilson. My stomach tightened. That's me. There was a brief silence. Then he spoke words that changed everything. I need to discuss some unusual activity involving your financial accounts. My heart skipped a beat. What kind of activity? Would it be possible for you to visit our office today? The concern in his voice was impossible to ignore. It's important. I felt nervous immediately, very nervous. Because Daniel handled most financial matters now, he insisted on it, said it was easier, safer, better, and suddenly I wondered, had I made another mistake, a much bigger mistake? What exactly is this about? I asked. I'm afraid I can't discuss details over the phone. His voice lowered. "But I strongly recommend you come in today. Strongly recommend." Those two words echoed inside my mind. Something was wrong, very wrong. I agreed to meet him. After hanging up, I sat motionless. My tea had gone cold. Outside, birds chirped. Cars passed. The world continued normally, but inside me, fear was growing. Hour by hour, minute by minute, I couldn't explain it. I just knew something terrible was waiting for me. And for the first time in years, I began wondering if maybe Daniel was hiding more than his temper, maybe much more. Maybe the nightmare I was living inside was only part of the truth, and if I was right, everything was about to change. The financial office was located downtown, a tall glass building surrounded by expensive restaurants and luxury stores. The kind of place I rarely visited. As I stepped through the revolving doors, my hands were shaking. I kept telling myself this was probably a misunderstanding, some paperwork error, a computer mistake, anything. Anything except what my instincts were telling me. The receptionist greeted me politely. Within minutes, I was sitting across from Robert Hayes. He looked to be in his late 50s, gray hair, reading glasses, kind eyes. The sort of man who had delivered bad news many times before. "Mrs. Wilson." He folded his hands together. "Thank you for coming." I forced a smile. "What seems to be the problem?" His expression changed immediately, not anger. Not judgment, pity, oh God. The moment I saw pity in his eyes, my heart sank. He opened a thick folder. Inside were dozens of printed documents, bank statements, transfer records, account summaries, pages and pages. Then he pushed them toward me. "Do you recognize these accounts?" I looked down. One of them belonged to me, my checking account, my savings account. Everything appeared normal at first. Then I noticed something, large transfers. Thousands of dollars, again and again, month after month. My breath caught in my throat. "What is this?" Robert sighed. "That's exactly what we're trying to determine." I stared at the pages. $10,000, $8,000. $5,000, $3,000, over and over. Money disappearing. Money I never authorized. Money I never spent. I felt dizzy. There must be some mistake. Robert shook his head. "We verified everything multiple times." My hands began trembling. "How much?" His answer felt like a punch to the chest. "Approximately $63,000. I couldn't breathe. 63,000, my retirement savings. My security, my future, gone, just gone." Tears immediately filled my eyes. "No," I whispered. "No." Robert handed me a tissue. Then he spoke carefully. "Mrs. Wilson, there is something else, something else." The words made my stomach twist. "What?" He hesitated. Then he turned another page, a page containing authorization signatures, my signature or something that looked like it. I stared at it. Shock washed over me. Because I hadn't signed those documents. Someone had forged my name. Someone had stolen my identity. And suddenly a terrible realization entered my mind. Only one person had access. Only one person knew all my information. Only one person controlled my finances. Daniel, my own son. Even saying it now feels impossible. A mother spends her life protecting her child, never imagining one day she'll need protection from him. Robert watched the realization spread across my face. "I take it you didn't authorize these transactions." I shook my head, slowly, numbly. "No." His expression hardened. "Then, Mrs. Wilson, you may be the victim of financial fraud." Victim. The word echoed through my mind. Victim, not just of abuse, not just of intimidation, not just of fear. Victim. I sat there staring at the evidence. Every page revealing another lie, another theft, another betrayal, and deep inside something began changing. For years, fear had controlled me, but now another emotion was growing. Anger, real anger. The kind that comes when someone steals not only your money, but your trust, your dignity, your life. I walked out of that office feeling like a different person. The sky looked darker, the city sounded louder, everything felt different. Because for the first time, I finally understood something. Daniel wasn't losing control, he wasn't struggling, he wasn't making mistakes. He was choosing this, choosing every lie, choosing every threat, choosing every theft, and if that was true, then maybe I needed to stop seeing him as the little boy I once raised. Maybe I needed to see him for who he had become. A realization that would soon lead to the most terrifying confrontation of my entire life. And when I returned home that evening, Daniel was already waiting. The drive home felt longer than it actually was. Maybe because my entire world had collapsed inside that office. Maybe because every traffic light gave me another minute to think, another minute to replay everything Robert had shown me, another minute to realize the truth. Daniel hadn't simply taken control of my finances. He had stolen from me systematically, deliberately, for months, possibly years. Even now, remembering that drive makes my chest tighten. I kept staring out the bus window. People walked along sidewalks carrying coffee cups. Teenagers laughed while crossing intersections. Workers hurried between buildings. Everyone seemed so normal, so peaceful, and meanwhile I felt like my life had been ripped apart. I couldn't stop thinking about the signatures. Those forged signatures, my name, my handwriting copied, my trust abused, my savings drained, every memory I had of Daniel kept crashing into the evidence, the little boy who used to bring me dandelions. The teenager who hugged me after winning his first debate competition, the young man who cried when he graduated college, and then the man who had stolen tens of thousands of dollars from his own mother. How could both versions exist? How I wanted answers, but deep down I already knew something worse. The moment I walked through that front door, Daniel wasn't going to admit anything. People like him never admit anything. They deny, manipulate, blame, attack. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified, because for the first time I wasn't coming home as the obedient mother. I was coming home with knowledge, dangerous knowledge. The bus finally stopped near my neighborhood. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped my purse while getting off. I walked slowly toward the house. Each step felt heavier than the last. The closer I got, the more my stomach twisted. Then I saw Daniel's car. Already parked outside, my heart immediately sank. He was home early, very early. That couldn't be good. Daniel never came home early unless something was wrong, or unless he wanted something. I stood at the end of the driveway for several seconds, just staring, trying to gather courage, trying to prepare myself. But how do you prepare yourself to confront your own child? How? No parenting book teaches that lesson. No mother imagines that conversation. Finally, I took a deep breath and opened the front door. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The house was silent, too silent, no television, no music, no footsteps, nothing. Then I noticed Daniel sitting in the living room, waiting. He wasn't watching television. He wasn't reading. He wasn't on his phone. He was simply sitting there, looking directly at the front door, looking directly at me, waiting. Oh God. My entire body froze. It felt like walking into a trap. Daniel slowly stood up. His expression was impossible to read. Not angry, not smiling, not calm, just cold, dangerously cold. Where were you? His voice was quiet. That scared me more than shouting. I went downtown. I immediately hated how weak my voice sounded. His eyes narrowed. Downtown where? I placed my purse on a chair, trying to appear calm, trying to appear normal. But inside, my heart was pounding. I had an appointment. With who? There it was, the interrogation, the control, the need to know everything. I suddenly remembered something. 3 years earlier, Daniel never cared where I went. Never cared who I spoke with, never cared what I did. Now he wanted to know everything, every movement, every phone call, every conversation. That wasn't concern, that was surveillance. And realizing that made me angry, very angry. Why do you need to know? The words escaped before I could stop them. Daniel blinked, clearly surprised. For a moment, neither of us spoke, because I almost never questioned him, almost never challenged him. But something had changed inside me, something Robert's documents had awakened. Daniel took a step closer. I asked a simple question, and I asked one too. The silence that followed felt enormous. I couldn't believe I had actually said it, neither could Daniel. For the first time in years, I wasn't backing down. His jaw tightened. Oh, I see. His voice became sarcastic. Somebody's feeling brave today. I said nothing. Daniel laughed. But there was no humor in it, just contempt. You know what your problem is, Mom. There it was, the lecture, the blame, the manipulation. I had heard it hundreds of times. You spend too much time listening to other people. He continued pacing around the room, like a lawyer preparing an argument. They fill your head with nonsense. They make you suspicious. They convince you that everyone is out to get you. I almost laughed. Actually laughed because the irony was unbelievable. For years, Daniel had convinced me everyone else was dangerous, everyone else was dishonest, everyone else had bad intentions. Meanwhile, he was the one stealing from me. Ha. Life has a cruel sense of humor. Daniel suddenly stopped pacing, his eyes locked onto mine. Who did you talk to today? There was no point avoiding it anymore. No one important. Wrong answer, very wrong answer. I saw the change instantly. His shoulders stiffened, his eyes darkened, the mask started slipping. The real Daniel was coming out. I don't like being lied to. I felt anger rising inside me. For years I had listened to lies, years. And now he was accusing me. You don't like being lied to? I couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth. Neither could he. Daniel stared at me, shocked, absolutely shocked. Then I said something I never imagined I would say. That's interesting. His face hardened. What does that mean? It means you've lied to me for years. The room went completely silent. Every sound disappeared. Even the air felt different. Because we both knew exactly what I was talking about, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I looked my son directly in the eyes. I didn't lower my gaze. I didn't apologize. I didn't retreat. I simply looked at him. And I watched something happen. For the first time, Daniel looked afraid, not afraid of me, afraid of what I knew. And that fear would soon reveal a truth even worse than the missing money. For the first time in years, Daniel looked afraid. Not angry, not arrogant, afraid. The expression lasted only a second, just 1 second, then it disappeared. The mask returned, the confident businessman, the successful son, the man everyone admired, but I had seen it. And once you see fear in someone's eyes, you can never unsee it. What exactly do you think you know? Daniel asked. His voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes right before a storm. I folded my arms across my chest. Mostly because my hands were shaking. I didn't want him to see that. I know enough, Daniel laughed, a short laugh, a dangerous laugh. Mom, you've always had a talent for imagining things. There it was, the familiar strategy, gaslighting. Confusion, doubt, for years it worked. For years he convinced me I was forgetful, too emotional, too sensitive, too old, but something inside me refused to bend anymore. No, I replied. I think I've spent years ignoring things. His smile vanished. What is that supposed to mean? It means I'm finally paying attention. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Daniel walked toward me slowly, every step deliberate, calculated. He stopped only a few feet away. I hope you understand something. His voice dropped lower. People can get into serious trouble when they make false accusations. I almost laughed. False accusations. After everything, after the stolen money, after the threats, after the abuse, the audacity was unbelievable. I didn't accuse anyone. Not yet. The last two words remained inside my head. Not yet. Daniel studied my face, trying to read me, trying to determine how much I knew, trying to determine who had spoken to me. And suddenly I realized something. He was desperate, not because he felt guilty, not because he regretted anything. He was desperate because he was losing control. Control was everything to him. Without control, he had nothing. For years, he controlled my money, my schedule, my emotions, my confidence, my entire life. Now that control was slipping away, and he knew it. Who did you meet today? He asked again. I said nothing. His jaw tightened. Answer me, still nothing. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then something surprising happened. His phone rang. The sound broke the tension instantly. Daniel looked at the screen, and all the color drained from his face. I noticed immediately. His eyes widened, his breathing changed. Whatever name appeared on that screen frightened him. He answered quickly. Hello, silence. Then, right now, another pause. No, there must be some mistake. My heartbeat accelerated. Daniel turned away from me, but I could still hear fragments, documents, investigation, questions, meeting tomorrow. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. When he ended the call, he looked completely different, paler, tenser, worried. For the first time in years, my son looked like a man standing on the edge of disaster, and deep inside, I realized his problems were much bigger than me, much bigger, because whatever secret he was hiding. Other people were starting to discover it too. As Daniel stared silently at the dark screen of his phone, I understood something. The walls around his lies were beginning to crack, and once cracks appear, the collapse is only a matter of time. That evening felt strange, very strange. Daniel barely spoke. Normally, he criticized everything. The food, the television, the house, the weather, something, anything, but not that night. That night he was distracted, lost in thought. His phone never left his hand. Message after message, call after call, every notification made him tense, every vibration made him check the screen. I watched quietly, carefully. For years I had spent my energy trying to avoid conflict. Now I was observing, listening, learning, and what I saw frightened me, because Daniel wasn't acting like an innocent man, he was acting like someone trying to stop a disaster. Around 9 o'clock, he finally disappeared upstairs. The moment his bedroom door closed, I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The silence felt wonderful for a few minutes. Then the doorbell rang. My entire body froze. Nobody visited us at night, nobody. The bell rang again. I glanced toward the staircase. No movement. Daniel hadn't heard it, or maybe he was too busy. Slowly, I approached the front door. My heart was pounding. When I opened it, I found a woman standing there, mid-50s, gray coat, serious expression. I had never seen her before. Mrs. Wilson? Yes, she looked relieved. Thank goodness. Something about her voice immediately caught my attention. Concern, real concern, not pity, not judgment, concern. My name is Helen Carter. She glanced behind me, making sure Daniel wasn't nearby, then she lowered her voice. We need to talk. A chill ran down my spine. What is this about? She hesitated, clearly choosing her words carefully. It's about your son. The world seemed to stop. My pulse quickened. What about him? Helen looked genuinely uncomfortable, as though she wished she wasn't having this conversation. I work in accounting. Accounting. The word hit me like a lightning bolt. Immediately I thought about Robert, the missing money, the forged signatures, everything. I believe you may be in danger. My stomach dropped. Danger. The word echoed through my mind. What do you mean? Helen stepped closer. Your son has been asking questions. Questions about witnesses. My blood turned cold. Witnesses, not finances, not records, witnesses. That meant other people knew. Other people had seen something. Other people were involved. Helen continued. I shouldn't even be here. Her voice trembled. But when I learned who you were, I couldn't stay silent. I felt dizzy. The situation was becoming bigger by the minute, far bigger than I imagined. For years I believed I was trapped inside a private nightmare, a family problem, a personal tragedy. Now I was beginning to understand something terrifying. Daniel's actions extended far beyond this house, far beyond me, and whatever investigation was beginning, it was pulling more people into the light. Helen handed me a folded piece of paper. Keep this hidden. I stared at it. What is it? A phone number. Whose? She looked directly into my eyes. The person who can prove everything. My breath caught everything. What did that even mean? Before I could ask another question, Helen stepped back. I have to go. Wait. But she was already moving toward her car. One final sentence drifted through the night air. Whatever happens, don't tell your son we spoke. Then she drove away, leaving me standing alone on the porch, holding a piece of paper, holding a secret, holding what might be the key to the truth. I slowly unfolded the note, a name, a phone number, and beneath it 6 handwritten words. He knows where the money went. My hands began trembling because for the first time, I realized the missing money might only be the beginning. And whoever was attached to that phone number was about to reveal a truth that could destroy everything Daniel had built. For almost 10 minutes, I stood frozen in my living room. The small piece of paper felt unusually heavy in my hand. A phone number, a name, and 6 words that refused to leave my mind. He knows where the money went. Ha, I must have read those words 50 times, maybe more. Every time I looked at them, my heart beat faster. Because deep down I knew something. If I called that number, there would be no going back, no pretending, no denial, no comfortable lies, only truth, and truth can be terrifying. Especially when you've spent years avoiding it. I glanced upstairs. Daniel's bedroom light was still on. I could hear him pacing, talking on the phone, opening drawers, closing cabinets, moving around nervously. For the first time since he moved into my house, he seemed unsettled, and strangely enough, that gave me courage. Because all this time I thought I was the only one afraid, now I realized something. Daniel was afraid too, very afraid. I quietly slipped the note into my sweater pocket. Then I sat on the couch and waited. An hour passed, then another. Finally, around midnight, silence settled upstairs. His bedroom door closed. No more footsteps, no more phone calls. No more movement. I waited another 30 minutes just to be safe. Then I picked up my phone. My hands were trembling so badly that I nearly dropped it. I entered the number, stared at the screen, and hesitated. What if this was a trap? What if Daniel somehow arranged this? What if I was making a terrible mistake? My finger hovered over the call button. Then I remembered the forged signatures, the missing money, the bruises, the threats, the fear. No. The real mistake had been staying silent. I pressed call. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings, then a voice answered. Hello? A man's voice, deep, cautious, almost suspicious. I swallowed hard. Is this Michael? Silence. A long silence then. Who's asking? My name is Margaret Wilson. Another silence, longer this time. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. Oh my God, the man sounded shocked, completely shocked. Margaret, yes, you shouldn't be calling me. My heart immediately sank. What do you mean? His breathing became heavier, as if he was pacing, as if he was nervous. Did someone give you this number? Yes. Who? I hesitated. Something told me not to mention Helen, so I simply said, a friend. Another pause, then Michael sighed, a long, exhausted sigh. The fact that you're calling means everything is falling apart. My stomach twisted. What is your son's lies? The words hit me like a truck, direct, brutal, no hesitation, no uncertainty. Your son's lies. I sat down immediately. My knees suddenly felt weak. How do you know my son? Michael laughed. Not a happy laugh, a bitter one, because for almost a year I helped clean up his messes. The room suddenly felt smaller. What kind of messes? Silence. Then the kind that send people to prison. My entire body froze. Prison. I couldn't breathe. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally, Michael broke the silence. Margaret, how much do you actually know? I looked toward the ceiling, toward Daniel's bedroom, toward the man who had spent years controlling my life, and I answered honestly, not enough. Michael was quiet for several moments, then he said something that changed everything. Then we need to meet, not next week. Not tomorrow, not eventually, we need to meet. Immediately, urgently, desperately, because whatever secret Michael was carrying, it was bigger than stolen money, much bigger. And before that conversation ended, he gave me one final warning, a warning that kept me awake the entire night. Margaret, yes, if your son realizes you're asking questions, be careful. My heart pounded. Why? Michael's voice dropped almost to a whisper. Because desperate people do desperate things, and for the first time, I truly became afraid of what Daniel might be capable of. I barely slept. Actually, that's not true. I didn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Michael's warning. Desperate people do desperate things. Those words repeated over and over inside my head. Outside my bedroom window, darkness slowly gave way to morning. Birds began singing. Cars started moving. The world woke up, but I felt exhausted, emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted, spiritually exhausted. For years I had been carrying fear. Now I was carrying fear and truth, and somehow that was heavier. Around 7 o'clock, I heard Daniel moving downstairs. The familiar sound instantly made my stomach tighten. Old habits die hard. Even after everything I had learned, his footsteps still frightened me. I listened carefully. Cabinet doors opened, coffee brewed, a chair scraped against the kitchen floor. Everything seemed normal, too normal. The previous night's fear had disappeared. The tension, the anxiety, the nervous pacing, gone. It was as if Daniel had put his mask back on, the perfect mask, the one he showed the world. I walked into the kitchen. He was already dressed for work. Expensive suit, perfect tie, perfect smile, perfect liar. Morning, Mom. The friendliness sounded almost ridiculous now. I simply nodded. Daniel studied my face, looking for something, a clue, a sign, a mistake. Didn't sleep well? I shrugged. A little tired. His eyes lingered on me just a second too long, then he smiled. You should take better care of yourself. Ha, the irony nearly made me laugh. Take better care of myself. Coming from the man who had spent years destroying my peace, destroying my confidence, destroying my life. I sat quietly and drank my coffee, waiting, watching, observing. For years I had ignored details. Now I noticed everything, the nervous tapping of his fingers, the way he checked his phone every few minutes, the tension hidden behind his smile. Something was definitely happening, and Daniel was trying very hard to hide it. An hour later, he finally left. The moment his car disappeared around the corner, I grabbed my purse. Today was the day I would meet Michael. The man who knew everything. The meeting place was a small diner on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just coffee, sandwiches, and old vinyl booths. When I arrived, I spotted him immediately. Late 50s, gray beard, tired eyes. The eyes of someone carrying a burden. He stood when he saw me. Margaret, I nodded. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, because both of us knew something important. This meeting was dangerous, not physically, at least I hoped not, but emotionally, because truth changes people, and once you learn certain things, you can never unlearn them. We sat down, ordered coffee, then silence settled between us. Finally, Michael spoke. Your son wasn't stealing for himself. I blinked. What? The statement made no sense. Everything stopped, every thought, every assumption, every theory. He's not. Michael shook his head slowly. No, confusion flooded through me. But the money was going somewhere. My pulse quickened. Where? Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice, making absolutely sure nobody could hear. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. Your son owes dangerous people. The air seemed to leave my lungs. Dangerous people, not debt collectors, not banks, not investors, dangerous people. The kind of phrase that instantly creates fear. The kind of phrase nobody wants connected to their family. No, the word escaped automatically. Michael nodded sadly. I wish I was wrong. I stared at him, unable to speak, unable to think, unable to process what I was hearing. Because suddenly the story became much larger, much darker, much more dangerous. This wasn't simply about greed anymore. It wasn't simply about theft. It wasn't simply about abuse. Something else was hiding underneath everything. Something Daniel had been desperately trying to conceal. And as Michael reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope of documents, I realized I was about to learn exactly what that something was. A truth so shocking that it would force me to question whether I had ever truly known my son at all. My hands were shaking as Michael placed the thick envelope on the table between us. For a moment, neither of us touched it. The small diner suddenly felt quieter. The sounds of clinking dishes, the soft music playing overhead, the conversations from nearby tables, everything seemed distant, muted, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Michael slowly pushed the envelope toward me. Before you open that, he said quietly, you need to understand something. I swallowed hard. What? His tired eyes met mine. The man you're investigating isn't the son you remember. The words hurt more than I expected, because deep down I was still holding on to hope, a tiny piece of hope, the hope that somehow there was an explanation, a misunderstanding. A reason, something, anything, that would allow me to recognize the little boy I raised, but every new revelation was destroying that hope, piece by piece. I finally opened the envelope. Inside were dozens of documents, bank transfers, contracts, emails, printed messages, financial records, and photographs, lots of photographs. My heart immediately started pounding. These are connected to Daniel? Michael nodded. Every one of them. I picked up the first photo. Daniel standing outside a luxury restaurant, nothing unusual. Then I noticed the people standing beside him. 3 men I didn't recognize. The expressions on their faces made me uncomfortable, cold, hard, predatory. The kind of people who looked dangerous without saying a word. Who are they? Michael hesitated, then answered. People your son should never have gotten involved with. I stared at the photo, trying to understand, trying to make sense of everything. How did this happen? Michael leaned back in his chair, looking exhausted, as though he had carried this story alone for a long time. It started with gambling. My stomach dropped. Gambling. The word instantly explained things. The expensive lifestyle, the endless need for money, the hidden accounts, the lies, the debts, everything. No, I whispered. Michael nodded sadly. Yes, I couldn't believe it. Daniel had always appeared successful. Disciplined, responsible, but appearances can be deceptive, very deceptive, Michael continued. At first it was harmless, sports betting, small amounts, a few $100s, then it became thousands, then tens of thousands. Then more, and eventually, he started losing. Badly, I felt sick, physically sick. The room seemed to spin slightly, because now the missing money had context, not justification, never justification, but context. Daniel wasn't stealing because he needed groceries, or rent, or medical care. He was feeding an addiction that had grown large enough to consume everything around him, including me. Michael handed me another document. I stared at the numbers and my blood ran cold. $100,000, then another, 75,000, then another, 50,000, loss after loss, debt after debt, failure after failure. The totals were unbelievable. Completely unbelievable. I looked up. How much? Michael's expression darkened. A lot. How much? He sighed, then finally answered. More than $500,000. $500,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't speak. $500,000. How was that even possible? How had my son fallen so far? And more importantly, how much danger was he actually in? Because people don't casually lose $500,000, not without consequences, serious consequences. Michael lowered his voice. Margaret, I looked up. What? The money he took from you wasn't enough. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? It barely scratched the surface. A chill ran through my body, because if stealing from me wasn't enough, then where else had Daniel gotten money? Who else had he hurt? Who else had he betrayed? And as I continued sorting through the documents, I realized I wasn't looking at a financial disaster anymore. I was looking at a trail of destruction, a trail that stretched much further than I ever imagined. And buried somewhere inside those pages was a secret even Michael hadn't revealed yet, a secret that made him look genuinely afraid whenever Daniel's name was mentioned. By the time I left the diner, my head was spinning. $500,000, the number kept repeating itself, again and again and again. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every memory of Daniel now felt different. Every conversation, every argument, every excuse, everything. It was like looking at an old photograph and suddenly noticing something hidden in the background, something that had always been there, something you somehow missed. The entire drive home felt surreal. I barely noticed the traffic, barely noticed the weather, barely noticed anything, because my mind was trapped inside one question. How many lies had there been? 10, 50, 100, thousands, and worse. Was I still missing something? Michael had told me a lot. But I sensed he hadn't told me everything. Not yet. The fear in his eyes made that obvious. Around 4 o'clock, I pulled into my driveway. Daniel's car wasn't there. Relief washed over me. I needed time to think. Time to process, time to breathe. The house felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in years, I sat quietly in my own living room without feeling immediate anxiety. I almost forgot what that felt like. Almost. Then the doorbell rang. My heart immediately jumped. Fear had become automatic. I approached the door carefully, slowly, cautiously. When I opened it, I froze. Standing on my porch was a woman, mid-30s, beautiful, elegant, exhausted, and instantly recognizable. Vanessa, Daniel's girlfriend. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. I had expected many things, but not this, not her, not alone, not looking like that, because the confident woman I knew was gone. The expensive clothes remained. The perfect makeup remained, but the confidence gone, completely gone. She looked terrified. Can I come in? Her voice trembled. I stared at her, suspicious, confused, angry, after everything she had witnessed, after everything she ignored. Why was she here, and why did she look like she hadn't slept in days? Finally, I stepped aside. Vanessa entered quietly, looking over her shoulder before the door closed, as if she was afraid someone had followed her. That immediately alarmed me, very alarmed. We sat in the living room. Silence filled the space between us. Then suddenly, Vanessa started crying. Real crying, not dramatic tears, not manipulation. Real pain, raw pain. I watched in stunned silence, because this was the last thing I expected. After several moments, she wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. I said nothing. She looked down at her hands, then whispered something that made my entire body freeze. I tried to warn him. My heart skipped a beat. What? I tried to stop him. Her voice cracked. Again she began crying. The sight was unsettling, because for the first time, Vanessa didn't look like Daniel's partner. She looked like another victim, another person caught inside the same nightmare. What are you talking about? I asked. She looked directly into my eyes, and what I saw there terrified me. Guilt, fear, regret, all mixed together. Then she said 6 words that changed everything. Daniel is hiding something much worse. The room suddenly felt smaller. My pulse accelerated. Much worse. Worse than the money, worse than the abuse, worse than the lies. What could possibly be worse? Vanessa reached into her purse, slowly, carefully. Then she pulled out a small flash drive and placed it on the table between us. I stared at it. What is that? She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. The reason I'm afraid. A chill ran through my body because people don't become that frightened over ordinary secrets, and judging by Vanessa's expression, whatever was on that flash drive had the power to destroy Daniel completely. Maybe even send him to prison, but before she could explain further, both our phones buzzed at exactly the same moment. The sound made us jump. I looked down, so did she, and when I saw the name on my screen, my blood turned to ice. Daniel calling right now. At the exact moment Vanessa handed me the flash drive, as though somehow he already knew. The moment I saw Daniel's name on my phone screen, my blood turned cold. Across from me, Vanessa was staring at her own phone. Her face had gone completely pale. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The only sound in the room was the vibration of our phones against the coffee table. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It felt like a warning, a threat, a reminder that somehow, no matter where we went, Daniel's presence followed us. I looked at Vanessa. She looked terrified, not nervous, not worried, terrified, and suddenly I realized something. This wasn't the confident woman who used to sit beside Daniel at family dinners. This wasn't the woman who used to smirk whenever Daniel criticized me. This wasn't the woman who stood silently while I was humiliated in my own home. No, this woman looked broken, completely broken. Don't answer it, Vanessa whispered. Her voice was shaking. I looked down at the screen again, Daniel calling again and again and again, almost as if he knew something was wrong. Almost as if he could sense that secrets were slipping out of his control. Finally, the phone stopped ringing. I exhaled slowly. Only then did I realize I had been holding my breath. Vanessa immediately stood up and walked toward the front window. She carefully pulled the curtain aside, looking outside, scanning the street, checking both directions. The sight sent a chill through my body. People don't act like that unless they're afraid, very afraid. What are you looking for? I asked. Vanessa lowered the curtain. My car. What about it? She swallowed hard. I wanted to make sure nobody followed me. The room suddenly felt colder. Nobody followed me. Those four words echoed in my mind. What exactly was happening? How deep was this situation? And why did it feel like every answer created 10 new questions? Vanessa slowly sat down again. The flash drive remained on the table between us. Small, black, ordinary, yet somehow it felt more dangerous than a weapon. I couldn't stop staring at it. What is on it? I finally asked. Vanessa didn't answer immediately. Instead, she rubbed her hands together nervously. A habit, I realized. A nervous habit. Daniel did the exact same thing. The thought made my stomach twist. For years, I had watched both of them move through my house like they owned it, like I was the guest, like I was the burden. And now one of them was sitting across from me looking terrified. Life really is strange. Finally, Vanessa spoke. Before I tell you, I need you to understand something. I waited. She looked directly into my eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen. Anger flashed through me instantly. Because that sentence felt familiar, too familiar. People always say that after damage has already been done, after lives have already been destroyed, after trust has already been broken. I leaned back in my chair. And what exactly happened? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, not dramatic tears, not fake tears, the kind of tears that come from carrying guilt for too long. When I met Daniel, he wasn't like this. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because I had once said the same thing. He wasn't like this. How many people had told themselves that? How many people had watched Daniel change and convinced themselves it was temporary? She continued speaking. He was charming, funny, successful. He made me feel safe. The irony of that statement clearly wasn't lost on her. A bitter smile crossed her face. Looking back, I think I fell in love with a mask. The sentence hit me harder than expected. Because maybe that was true for everyone. Maybe we had all fallen in love with different versions of Daniel, different masks, different performances, different lies. The real person underneath remained hidden, protected, untouched. Vanessa looked down at the flash drive, then back at me. I found things. My pulse quickened. What things? She hesitated. For a moment I thought she might change her mind. Then she continued. Emails, records, videos. The word videos immediately caught my attention. Videos? Why would Daniel have videos? Vanessa took a shaky breath. At first I thought they were business records. What kind of business records? Meetings, transactions, conversations. Every word increased my anxiety. Because none of it sounded normal. None of it sounded legal. None of it sounded safe. What kind of conversations? I asked quietly. Vanessa's eyes moved toward the front door, then toward the windows, then back to me. As if she was making sure nobody could hear, as if speaking too loudly might somehow summon Daniel into the room. Finally she answered, the kind people don't want recorded. A knot formed in my stomach. For several moments neither of us spoke, then something unexpected happened. The silence brought back a memory from nearly 2 years earlier. Daniel had come home unusually late, around 3 in the morning. I remembered hearing the front door open, hearing muffled voices, hearing an argument. At the time I assumed he was drunk or tired or stressed. Now I wondered if I had witnessed something much bigger, something important. Something I failed to recognize. The realization made me feel sick. How many warning signs had I ignored? How many clues had been right in front of me? Vanessa suddenly reached for the flash drive. Her hand trembled. Margaret, yes, if you see what's on this, she stopped, unable to finish. If I see what, her eyes met mine, and what I saw there frightened me, not fear for herself, fear for me. If you see what's on this, you'll never look at your son the same way again. The room fell silent, completely silent, because deep down, I already knew she was right. And as I stared at that tiny flash drive sitting on my coffee table, I couldn't shake the feeling that the truth waiting inside it was far worse than stolen money, gambling debts, or lies. Much worse, and in less than an hour, I was about to find out exactly how much of my life had been built on deception. For nearly 5 minutes, neither of us touched the flash drive. It sat there on the coffee table, small, silent, waiting. The longer I stared at it, the more nervous I became, because once we opened it, there would be no turning back, no pretending, no comforting lies, only truth, and truth can destroy a person. Vanessa seemed to be thinking the same thing. She sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her fingers together nervously. Every few seconds, she glanced toward the front window, then toward the hallway, then toward the front door, as though she expected Daniel to walk through it at any moment. Finally, I stood up. I'm tired of being afraid. The words surprised even me. For years, fear had controlled my life. Fear of arguments, fear of disappointment. Fear of losing my son, fear of what tomorrow might bring. But lately something had changed. The fear was still there, yet another feeling was growing stronger, determination. I picked up the flash drive. Vanessa watched silently. Do you have a computer? She asked. I nodded. My old laptop. We moved into the dining room. The laptop sat exactly where I always kept it, on the corner of a small wooden desk, a desk that used to hold family photographs. Most of those photographs were gone now, packed away, hidden because looking at them hurt too much. I opened the laptop. My hands were trembling, partly from fear, partly from anticipation. Partly because I knew my life was about to change again. The machine slowly powered on. The waiting felt endless. Finally, the screen lit up. Vanessa inserted the flash drive. For several moments, nothing happened. Then a folder appeared. My pulse immediately accelerated. The folder had a simple name, private, nothing else, no dates, no descriptions, no labels, just one word, private. Vanessa looked away, almost as if she didn't want to see what came next. I clicked the folder, dozens of files appeared. Videos, audio recordings, photographs, documents, hundreds of them. My stomach tightened. No normal person keeps records like this. Not hundreds, not organized this carefully. Not hidden this deeply. I clicked the first video. The screen went black, then the recording began. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. A restaurant, people eating dinner, waiters moving between tables. Normal, completely normal. Then the camera shifted, and my heart nearly stopped. Daniel, sitting at a table, talking with two men. The same two men I had seen in Michael's photographs, the dangerous-looking men, the ones Michael warned me about. The quality wasn't perfect. The audio crackled, but it was clear enough, very clear. I listened carefully, trying to understand, trying to make sense of the conversation. At first it sounded like business, money, deadlines, payments. Nothing unusual. Then one of the men leaned forward. His voice became cold, very cold. You owe us. The words sent a chill through my body. Daniel immediately lowered his voice. I know, no, the man shook his head. You don't know, the second man laughed, not a pleasant laugh, the kind of laugh that makes people uncomfortable, the kind of laugh predators use. Then came a sentence that made my blood run cold. You've already run out of chances. The room suddenly felt smaller. I looked at Vanessa. She looked just as frightened as I felt. Back on the screen, Daniel was sweating, actually sweating. The confident man I knew was gone. This Daniel looked desperate, cornered, terrified. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in my son's face. Not anger, not arrogance, fear, and somehow that frightened me even more. The video continued. The men demanded money, large amounts. Amounts Daniel clearly didn't have. Then one of them said something that changed everything. If you can't pay, we'll collect another way. My heart skipped a beat. Another way? What did that mean? The recording ended before we found out. The screen went dark. Neither of us spoke. For several seconds, all I could hear was my own breathing. Then Vanessa whispered, "That's not the worst one." I slowly turned toward her. Not the worst one. How could there be worse? Much worse, apparently, because the next file would reveal something neither of us were prepared to see, something that would force me to question whether Daniel's gambling debt was ever the real problem at all. I couldn't stop staring at the screen. My heart was still racing from the first video. The fear on Daniel's face haunted me. For years I had seen him as the threat, the aggressor, the controller, the abuser, and he was all of those things, but the man in that video looked hunted. Like someone trapped inside a nightmare of his own making. Vanessa rubbed her arms nervously. We should stop. I looked at her. What? We should stop watching. The fear in her voice was unmistakable, real fear, raw fear. I glanced back at the laptop. The The files remained open, dozens of them waiting, tempting, dangerous. No, my voice surprised me, firm, certain, no more secrets. Vanessa closed her eyes. For a moment she looked exhausted, then she nodded. Slowly, reluctantly, okay, I moved the cursor, scanning file names. Most were numbers, dates, random codes, nothing meaningful. Then one title caught my attention. Storage unit, I clicked it. The video opened immediately. This recording looked different, dark, shaky, poor quality. The camera appeared hidden. The footage showed an industrial area, large warehouses, storage buildings, chain link fences, rain falling heavily. The recording timestamp showed nearly 11 o'clock at night. A figure entered the frame. Daniel, I recognized him instantly, even from a distance. Even through the rain, my pulse quickened. What was he doing there? The camera followed him. Not closely, just enough to keep him visible. He walked toward one of the storage units, stopped, looked around nervously, then unlocked the door. The metal door rolled upward, slowly, painfully slowly. And what appeared inside made me freeze. Boxes, dozens of boxes, stacked floor to ceiling. Not ordinary moving boxes, not personal belongings, not furniture, something else. The labels were blurred, the camera couldn't capture enough detail. But whatever was inside seemed important, very important. Daniel entered. Several minutes passed. The person holding the camera remained hidden, watching, waiting, recording. Then another vehicle arrived, a black SUV. Two men stepped out. The same men from the restaurant video. My stomach immediately tightened. This couldn't be good, not at all. The conversation was difficult to hear. Rain drowned out much of it. Wind distorted the audio, but certain phrases remained clear. Painfully clear, move everything. Tomorrow, no mistakes, too much attention. My heartbeat accelerated. Attention, what attention? What were they moving? Why were they hiding things? The questions piled up faster than answers. Then Daniel said something that made Vanessa gasp. If my mother finds out, we're finished. The words hit me like a punch. My mother, me. I was somehow connected to whatever was happening. I stared at the screen, unable to look away. Unable to blink, the recording ended abruptly. Silence filled the dining room, heavy silence, the kind that changes people. Vanessa looked pale. I probably looked worse. Neither of us spoke for nearly a minute. Finally, I broke the silence. What was in those boxes? Vanessa shook her head. I don't know. You've never seen them? No. Her answer sounded honest. That frightened me, because if Vanessa didn't know, then maybe nobody knew. Or maybe only Daniel knew, and if that was true, the secret was even bigger than I imagined. I looked back at the folder. Hundreds of files, hundreds of clues, hundreds of pieces waiting to be assembled. For the first time, I realized we weren't uncovering a simple family tragedy anymore. We were uncovering something much larger, something darker, something that connected gambling debts, hidden meetings, dangerous men, secret recordings, and a storage unit full of mysterious boxes. And deep down, a terrible feeling began growing inside me, a feeling that whatever was hidden in those boxes was the real reason Daniel was so desperate, the real reason he stole, the real reason he lied, and the real reason certain people were willing to threaten him, because somewhere inside those files was a secret powerful enough to destroy multiple lives, including mine. For a long time, neither Vanessa nor I said a word. The rain-soaked image of the storage unit remained frozen on the laptop screen. Daniel, the boxes, the black SUV, the dangerous men, and one sentence that refused to leave my mind. If my mother finds out, we're finished. I replayed those words over and over, again and again and again. Why would he say that? Why me? Why was I important? I wasn't involved in whatever he was doing. At least I didn't think I was. Yet somehow my name appeared in conversations happening in secret storage units late at night. The realization made my stomach churn. Vanessa slowly reached for the laptop. I think we missed something. What? The recordings. I looked at her. What about them? She pointed toward the screen. Who made them? The question hit me instantly, of course. I had become so focused on what the recordings contained that I never stopped to think about who recorded them. Someone had followed Daniel. Someone had secretly filmed him. Someone had gathered hundreds of files, hundreds. That wasn't random. That wasn't an accident. That was a deliberate investigation. I immediately opened the folder again, carefully, methodically. This time I wasn't looking for Daniel. I was looking for clues, the creator, the source. The person behind the camera. We spent nearly an hour opening documents. Photographs, audio files, everything. Most revealed pieces of the same puzzle. Financial transfers, meetings, suspicious conversations, mysterious locations. Then suddenly Vanessa froze. Wait, my pulse quickened. What? She pointed toward a document near the bottom of the folder, a text file, tiny, easy to miss. We opened it. Only 3 lines appeared, 3 simple lines. If anything happens to me, the evidence goes public. Trust nobody. RC, my heart immediately began racing. RC initials, someone's initials, someone who clearly believed they were in danger. Vanessa stared at the screen. Then suddenly her eyes widened. Oh my God, what? I know those initials. The room went silent. What do you mean? She swallowed hard, then whispered, Richard Coleman. The name meant nothing to me. But judging by Vanessa's reaction, it meant something to her, something important. Who is Richard Coleman? Vanessa looked genuinely shaken. He used to work with Daniel. I felt a chill run through my body. Used to work with Daniel. Past tense, what happened? Vanessa hesitated. The hesitation told me everything. Whatever happened wasn't good. Finally, she answered. He disappeared. The words landed like a hammer, disappeared. What do you mean disappeared? No one knows. The room suddenly felt smaller, much smaller. Vanessa continued. About a year ago, he stopped showing up. No calls, no messages, no explanations. He was just gone. I stared at her, unable to speak, because suddenly the recordings became much more disturbing. Someone secretly documenting Daniel, someone afraid for their life, someone who vanished. No, I didn't like where this was going. Not at all. The more pieces we uncovered, the darker the picture became. And for the first time, I started wondering whether Daniel was hiding something even worse than debt, even worse than fraud, something capable of making people disappear. Something capable of creating real fear, not financial fear, not embarrassment, real fear. The kind that follows you home at night, the kind that keeps you awake, the kind that destroys lives. Vanessa looked toward the window. The sun had begun setting, darkness slowly creeping across the neighborhood. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. If Richard made these recordings, I looked at her. Then what? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Then Daniel may already know we're watching them. A heavy silence settled over the room because deep down, we both knew exactly what that could mean. That night, neither of us felt safe, not even a little. The files remained open on my laptop. The flash drive sat beside it, and every answer we uncovered seemed to create 5 new questions. Who is Richard Coleman? Why did he record Daniel? What happened to him? What was hidden inside those boxes? And most importantly, what exactly was my son involved in? Hours passed. The sky outside darkened, streetlights flickered on, cars disappeared from the neighborhood. The world became quiet, too quiet. Vanessa remained in my house. Neither of us wanted to admit it, but we were both afraid to be alone. So we sat in the living room, talking, sharing stories. For the first time, Vanessa began telling me things she had never mentioned before. Small things at first, strange phone calls, late-night meetings, sudden disappearances, arguments, secrets, then bigger things, much bigger things, like the time Daniel came home with blood on his shirt. My heart nearly stopped. Blood? Vanessa nodded. He claimed it came from a car accident. Did you believe him? No. The answer came immediately, too immediately, meaning she had never believed him, not even for a second. I felt sick. Because every story revealed another version of Daniel, a version I had never known, a version hidden beneath years of lies. Around 11:30, Vanessa finally fell asleep on the couch. I covered her with a blanket. Then quietly walked into the kitchen. I needed water, needed air, needed something. My thoughts were spinning out of control. I stood by the sink looking out into the darkness. The street appeared empty, silent, still. Then I saw movement, a figure. Standing across the street, my heart stopped, a person watching the house. At first I thought I was imagining it, but no, someone was definitely there, standing beneath a streetlight, completely motionless, watching. A chill ran through my body. I blinked, the figure remained, still watching, still standing, still waiting. I immediately stepped away from the window. Fear exploded inside my chest. Maybe it was nothing, maybe it was a neighbor, maybe it was someone walking home, maybe. But deep down I knew better. The timing was impossible to ignore. The files, the recordings, Richard, the secrets, and now someone watching my house. No, that wasn't coincidence. I quietly returned to the living room, trying not to panic. Trying not to wake Vanessa, then suddenly knock. The sound echoed through the house, loud, sharp, unexpected. My entire body jumped. Vanessa woke instantly. What was that? Before I could answer, knock, knock, knock again, harder this time. Much harder, fear surged through both of us. Midnight visitors rarely bring good news, especially after everything we had discovered. Vanessa stood up, pale, terrified. I felt exactly the same. The knocking continued, slow, steady, deliberate. Whoever stood outside wasn't leaving, not anytime soon. And as I slowly approached the front door, my heart pounding louder with every step, a terrible thought entered my mind. What if this wasn't about Daniel? What if this was about Richard Coleman? What if the person outside already knew we had the flash drive? I reached the door, my hand trembling. The knocking stopped. Complete silence followed, the kind of silence that feels wrong. The kind of silence that warns you something is about to happen. Then a voice came from the other side. A man's voice, low, calm, and terrifying. Mrs. Wilson. My blood turned to ice, because I had never heard that voice before, yet somehow. The stranger already knew exactly who I was, and something told me that opening that door was about to change everything. My hand froze on the doorknob. Every instinct told me not to open that door. The stranger knew my name. It was after midnight. Someone had been watching the house. We had just uncovered files connected to a missing man. Nothing about this situation felt safe. Nothing. Behind me, Vanessa stood motionless. I could hear her breathing, quick, shallow. Terrified, honestly, I felt exactly the same. The voice came again, calm, patient, almost as if the man already knew I would hesitate. Mrs. Wilson, please, I don't have much time. My heart pounded, hard, loud, painfully loud. Finally, I gathered what little courage I had left and spoke through the closed door. Who are you? Several seconds passed. Then the man answered, My name is Thomas Reed. The name meant nothing to me, nothing at all. Why are you here? Another pause, then, because Richard Coleman is dead. The world stopped, completely stopped. Behind me, Vanessa gasped. My knees nearly gave out. Richard dead, not missing, not hiding, not running away, dead. A cold wave of shock rushed through my body. Everything suddenly felt unreal, like a nightmare, like something happening to someone else. Not me, not my family, not my life, yet here I was, standing in my hallway, listening to a stranger tell me that a man connected to my son was dead. I slowly unlocked the door. The moment it opened, I saw him, mid-60s, gray hair, dark coat, tired eyes, very tired eyes, not the eyes of a criminal. Not the eyes of a threat, the eyes of a man carrying a burden, a heavy burden. He looked past me toward Vanessa, then back at me. May I come in? For a moment, I considered saying no. Then I remembered the flash drive, the recordings. The storage unit, Richard's message, trust nobody. But if Thomas truly knew what happened, I needed answers. I stepped aside, slowly, carefully, he entered. Vanessa immediately moved closer to me. Neither of us trusted him, not yet. Thomas sat down across from us. For several moments, nobody spoke. Then he looked directly at me and said something I never expected to hear. Your son isn't a murderer. The statement hit me like a truck. Because deep down, that possibility had begun haunting me. Richard disappeared, dangerous men, secret recordings, threats. Fear, my imagination had gone to dark places, very dark places, Thomas continued, but he helped cover up crimes. The relief I felt vanished instantly, gone, just gone, because while that wasn't murder, it was still horrifying. Thomas sighed heavily, the kind of sigh that comes from carrying difficult truths. Then he began telling us everything. Richard Coleman had worked with Daniel, not as a friend, not as a partner, as an accountant. Richard handled records, payments, transfers, financial reports. At first, everything seemed normal. Then Richard discovered irregularities, large amounts of money moving through accounts, money connected to people Daniel owed, dangerous people, the same men from the videos. Richard became suspicious, very suspicious. So he started documenting everything, recording conversations, saving documents, collecting evidence, building a case. The flash drive, the videos, the files, all of it came from Richard. He planned to expose everything. Then one day he vanished. I swallowed hard. What happened? Thomas looked down. For a moment he seemed genuinely emotional. Then he answered, heart attack. I blinked. What? Richard suffered a heart attack. The room went silent. I had expected something dramatic, violent, criminal. Instead, life delivered something tragically ordinary. Thomas nodded sadly. He died before he could finish what he started. I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that Daniel hadn't killed anyone. Sadness that Richard never got to see justice. Thomas continued. Before he died, Richard gave copies of everything to several people. My eyes widened. Several people, not just one, meaning the truth couldn't easily disappear. Smart, very smart. For the first time all night, I felt hope. Real hope. Then Thomas looked directly at me. Margaret, your son is guilty. The words hurt. Even after everything, even now they hurt, because no matter what happened, Daniel was still my son. Thomas continued. But he's not beyond saving. I wasn't sure I believed that. Not anymore, not after everything. Yet part of me wanted to. Part of me still remembered the little boy who used to bring me flowers. The little boy who cried when he scraped his knee. The little boy who once loved his mother. The next morning changed everything. Around 9 o'clock, Daniel came home. The moment he entered the house, he knew something was different. Maybe he saw it in my eyes, maybe he sensed it. Maybe he simply knew the lies had finally run out. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then he noticed Thomas, then Vanessa, then the flash drive sitting on the table. All color drained from his face. Instantly, he understood. The game was over. The secrets were exposed. The truth had arrived, and there was nowhere left to hide. The silence felt endless. Then Daniel sat down, slowly. He looked exhausted. Not angry, not aggressive, just exhausted. Like a man who had spent years running from consequences, and finally ran out of road. For the first time in years, he cried. Real tears, not manipulation, not performance, real tears. Watching it broke my heart because despite everything, he was still my child. Daniel admitted everything. The gambling, the debts, the lies, the stolen money, the forged signatures, everything. Hours passed, confessions, apologies, truths, pain, regret. Years of poison finally spilling into the open. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't enough to erase what happened, but it was honest, finally honest. Authorities eventually became involved. Daniel accepted responsibility. The stolen funds were documented, arrangements were made for restitution. The dangerous associates disappeared from his life, and for the first time in years, I stopped living in fear. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. Some wounds take time, a lot of time. Months later, I moved into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but it was peaceful, wonderfully peaceful. I started gardening again. Started reading again, started laughing again. Simple things, things I had forgotten. One afternoon, while watering flowers on my balcony, I realized something. For years, I thought love meant protecting people from consequences. Especially family, especially children. I was wrong. Love isn't helping someone hide from the truth. Love isn't sacrificing your dignity to keep the peace. Love isn't allowing abuse because you're afraid of losing someone. Real love requires honesty, boundaries, accountability, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. As for Daniel, recovery was long, difficult, complicated, but eventually he started rebuilding his life, one honest decision at a time. One day at a time, and although our relationship would never be what it once was, it slowly became something healthier, something real, not built on fear, not built on control, built on truth, and that made all the difference. If this story teaches anything, it's this: never ignore red flags simply because they come from someone you love. Love should never require you to lose yourself. The moment you choose truth over fear is the moment your life can finally begin again. And if you enjoyed this story and want more emotional family dramas, mysteries, and life-changing lessons, subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story.